Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Westward Editor-in-Chief Patty Calhoun. Hello.
Hello.
So today we're talking about the big progressive rally over the weekend that was booted from several venues, Juneteenth's big plans for this year, and we're going to ruminate yet again on the question, what is the real state of downtown? Patty, before we get to the downtown conversation, because I'm excited to have that with you, we have to talk about this rally that happened over the weekend. Were you following any of this? It was changing very quickly.
It was, and we had written the original story, I think, about Hassan Piker coming, and it seemed like everything was pretty under control. Location was pretty much TBD if you were interested. But then I'm watching the news because I was in Chicago for the weekend at a journalism confab, and you see it's being moved and things aren't happening and people are canceling. It was wild.
It was wild. So you mentioned this was leftist Twitch streamer Hassan Piker was set to be sort of the big voice, or at least kind of the most famous voice at this progressive rally this weekend, which also included local candidates, Mail-Out Kiros running for Congressional District 1, Senator Julie Gonzalez, who's running for U.S. Senate. And then they were joined by progressives Michigan State Rep Donovan McKinney and Tennessee Rep Justin Pearson. I have to say, I started hearing grumblings about the potential venue upheaval on Friday night because it was sort of getting around the left side of things. Like, does anybody know where we can host this several hundred person venue? Because, okay, so originally it was supposed to be at Real Works, which is part of the Exto Tracks big sort of multi-room venue, and I think they can hold over 3,000 people. So, but Tracks canceled. Then it was moved to the Ogden, where it was also canceled. And then it was tentatively moved to Stanley Marketplace, where it was also canceled. So it finally took place on the steps of the Capitol. And then Hassan dropped out. And Senator Gonzalez dropped out. And both of them cited safety concerns over this sort of last-minute change. I think lack of understanding of security. It was going from an indoor venue to an outdoor venue. But I wonder if have you seen anything like this before or lately when it comes to a political gathering having this much trouble finding an event? I guess I'm thinking of it more on the right. Sometimes these things happen.
Well, let's remember we had all those rallies that were set in Colorado Springs, and they kept losing venues.
That's right.
What I find surprising is Exto and Real Works are very, very organized, and they usually know exactly what they're getting into. So if this was canceled, I'm guessing it was less for content than perhaps for preparation.
Yeah, that was surprising to me too, because I thought this is a multi-venue space. They book things all year round. I would assume someone have just Googled Hassan Piker.
Right.
And
they do lots of political events on both sides. I've certainly been to plenty of rallies and election night parties there. They're used to security. I just wonder, just judging by the response from the organizers to what's gone on, if they just weren't organized, because now to blame Diana DeGette, that is not what happened.
That was an interesting turn to me too, because I have to say, I've never heard of that being the case in any of these situations where a candidate's team has gone to a venue to cancel something of an opposing candidate's gathering. But so we saw some emails exchanged between Real Works and the planner of this progressive event. And apparently Real Works said that their AC was out of commission and it was going to be unbearable to have so many folks in there. And that's why they had canceled the rally. However, the planner for this progressive event said in these emails, well, Real Works and the whole Exto Event Center had events planned for the rest of the weekend. So it felt a little sus to them that this was the reasoning.
That is a little questionable.
Okay, so according to emails forwarded to us by the Kiros campaign, which were conversations back and forth with these various venues, Again, RealWorks was said the reason was the AC was out. The Ogden Theater, however, was a different situation. Again, contracts were signed, deposit was paid, but a few hours later, AEG, who books the Ogden Theater, said, quote, in this email to the Kiros campaign, due to significant pressure and concern from the local community who have reached out to our leadership, we have made the decision to cancel hosting this event at the Ogden. Below is the cancellation provision, Again, we've not been able to confirm these emails with the venue, but these were forwarded to us by the Kiros campaign. This feels a little bit more honest to me than the AC being broken.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, who are these community members? What is really behind this situation?
And I don't think it's Diana DeGette. There could certainly be threats in this case with the people going are controversial. I don't see that it's the Diana DeGette campaign making threats. But I mean, we had AOC and Bernie Sanders in Civic Center Park with 32,000 people. Even working quickly, you would think, well, you wouldn't have to work that quickly because you would think some of the security would have been set. I can't imagine, but it's possible that RealWorks had originally been in charge of all the security too.
Yeah, I would assume so too. But I think too, the difference here with like the Bernie and AOC campaign is like, these are established politicians. Hasan Piker is a Twitch streamer that has millions of followers, but he has said some things in the past on his streams that were very upsetting to some people. There's this particular moment that keeps getting quoted over and over again from Hasan Piker from a stream he did about 7 years ago. It's been shared widely where he said that the U.S., quote, deserved 9/11. But later his words, he himself said his words were inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's been accused of anti-Semitism by some Jewish organizations and accused of sympathizing with Hamas. So I think that would be where the concerns and the threat would lie. But as for the DeGette tie into this, I also found this interesting. So on Instagram, Melak Kiros accused DeGette's campaign, saying that she claims that DeGette had, quote, called up her donor class to silence us, the Ogden, RealWorks, Stanley Marketplace, all of them cancel our contracts at the last minute. And then DeGette's campaign said to Denverite, James Owens, from the spokesman for the DeGette campaign, said the congresswoman denied any claim that her campaign had pressured these venues to block Piker and Kiros. And they said, quote, obviously that claim is ridiculous, Owens wrote in a text to Denverite. If Melak Kiros wants to campaign with someone who said America deserved 9/11, we do nothing to stop her. So it's a very loaded situation.
Well, it's still murky, and we're going to have to get more smoking emails in order to find it in any tie to get. You can certainly see that the venues, which are sensitive, do not want a problem. And the problem is not the DeGette campaign, but the problem could be if there was violence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was, again, what Hasan and Senator Gonzalez had cited as their reasons for pulling out altogether was the last minute moves and that potential lack of security.
And then not even going to the Capitol, which was a little surprising, I guess, really for Gonzalez at that point. It's not like she isn't there all the time, but
I thought that was surprising too, because of that same thing. And I also kind of thought, like, I wonder why that wasn't originally chosen as the place to do this gathering. But
exactly, because again, I know the AOC Bernie comparison isn't perfect, but on the other hand, those are people who've been threatened plenty in their lifetime. And the security did take care of it. And there was enough time early on from this announcement to come up with something that would have worked. But I'm sure a surprise over air conditioning just set everything in motion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I would say, too, there's been this big push from the DeGette campaign to connect Melak Kiros to Hasan Piker. But on the other side of it, Melak Kiros has not been shy at all about being on Hasan's show, being on his streams, having an hour-long conversation with him. So I think it really, to me, what I saw pulling away from this was it's a bit of a generational divide here. Hasan speaks to Gen Z very clearly. And DeGette's campaign, I think, while trying to do that, has this established constituency of, I'm thinking of folks like my mom, who's voted for her the 14 times she's been reelected. And I wonder, although I saw a really cool, there was I think it was in a Rocky Mount PBS piece, there was a mom that was there with her 18-year-old. And she was like, my son brought me to this. And now I'm kind of thinking about the election in a different way. So Could this be a big push in the primary where we see a lot of younger voters? I don't know.
You wonder what would have happened if they had just instead skipped Hassan Piker, who everyone should have seen was going to be a challenge, and instead have a big progressive rally at the Capitol, really get a band that would grab people, really have something appealing to younger voters to show the generational divide.
Yeah, I think that's where Hassan Piker is so key. He brings so many young people with him.
But he brings baggage.
Which, sure, absolutely. Well, like you said, we're going to be watching this because there's probably going to be a lot more coming out about what exactly happened to have an event like this be moved 4 times in like 72 hours, something I'd never seen before. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see how this shakes out. I have to say, I saw a lot of criticism online for Gonzalez pulling out of it, but voices online don't necessarily represent what we're going to see in a primary vote at the end of the month.
This is a tough one because we're taping this on Monday. By tomorrow, we might know a lot more.
Absolutely.
Because I'm guessing all the venues will come out with what their real reasons were or a legit reason.
Yeah.
Julia Gonzalez might come out with more.
Yeah, she made a pretty long statement on Instagram, but I think it was more focused just on like what her campaign is doing. But I would be curious too if there's something more closer to what the reality was behind the scenes.
Right. And if Piker is gone, why not come?
Totally.
So maybe there were threats that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're talking about the state of downtown. This episode is brought to you by the Central City Opera. The 94th Central City Opera Festival opens June 27th. Since 1932, Central City Opera has been one of Colorado's favorite arts traditions, bringing world-class talent to an 1878 opera house just 1 hour west of Denver. This summer, Central City Opera is celebrating Colorado's 150th anniversary and 250 years of American independence with an anniversary all their own, the 70th anniversary of their world premiere of The Ballad of Baby Doe. The show tells the scandalous historical love story of Silver Baron Horace Tabor, who has left his wife Augusta for Baby Doe, which rocked Denver society and remains a staple of Colorado history. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with Baby Doe. I want to see this show so bad. I know it's a scandalous story because Augusta Tabor doesn't get the credit she deserved for being a very cool lady. But there's something intriguing about Baby Doe. If you've ever seen pictures of her, she's gorgeous. And there's a reason there was a mining-themed restaurant named after her in Denver because we love Baby Doe. Other shows this summer include The Marriage of Figaro, Masterclass, CCO in Concert, and so much more. Tickets start at $32 and seats are going fast, so don't miss out. The festival runs June 27th through August 2nd. Visit centralcityopera.org to learn more. Okay, so we're back. This has been a conversation, I think, since the pandemic. We've been talking about it. You've been talking about it. Recently, last month, the Wall Street Journal actually ran this story about Asher Lozado, a developer who we'll talk about here in a minute. But they ran a story called, "Can This Guy Get People to Live in America's Emptiest Downtown?" First of all, Patty, what did you think about that visual that the Wall Street Journal was giving?
Not completely accurate, although if you picked a few a few strips downtown, especially the uptown area, the upper downtown area where Asher Lozado has bought 4 buildings, those are pretty empty, and he got a real deal on them because they're so empty. So yes, if you cherry pick a strip of downtown, it's going to be America's emptiest downtown. But you're cutting out Lodo, you're cutting out the Union Station area, you're cutting out the actually areas of downtown which are pretty vibrant. We had done a story on Asher Lozado the month before, and he's a fascinating guy, and it's really his projects are really interesting. You cross your fingers that they are going to work.
Yeah, he has sort of these really big plans for office conversions into housing, which again is a very complicated situation to take a 70s or 80s era office building and turn it into housing. But that seems to be what he's really focused on, understanding this is going to be pricey. But can you tell me a little bit more about what you gleaned from that conversation with him? What do you think is innovative or different about his approach to this quote problem that maybe hasn't been done before.
Well, what's interesting is how holistic his plans are. So it's not just getting housing in and fairly affordable housing, but it's putting in childcare. It's making community that where you would have cafes and you would have arts areas. He's actually already hosting arts parties in one of the buildings. And he is definitely pushing to make it. You remember when people were first moving downtown, the artists were moving out and the empty nesters were moving in, and it was supposed to be hip and, urban second home. And now he's really pushing, this is going to be a lifestyle choice. A lot older people who are interested in downtown, but younger people too. But the childcare and the artist parties really are interesting. And I think that's one of the reasons he got a lot of money, or I should say a big grant from the Downtown Development Authority, which has turned down some of the other requests for residential conversions. But he got them.
That's what I found interesting too, was like what was in his plan. And maybe it was that holistic approach that just seemed more viable for the DDA grants than some of these other, maybe just less thought out projects.
Or more expensive projects. That was one, the River Mile, I'm just blanking on his name, Rhett Dugan.
Reese Dugan. Yeah.
Reese Dugan, who he had turned one in. It was more expensive. And that was why the DDA said they were turning it down. There have been other issues with a couple, but this one is pretty much of a bargain, but also a more innovative look at it. So it was fun it was fun to see the Wall Street Journal doing it. I don't think we really needed the emptiest downtown tag, which I can tell you, I don't think holds up, that tag for downtown's area.
Rose Callahan at 5280 had a similar response to you. She wrote a piece too in response to the Wall Street Journal story. And she said, if you read that Wall Street Journal piece, you likely came away thinking downtown Denver is a Mad Max-esque wasteland of blight and crime. And that's part of the reason I wanted to talk to you about this, is because I read in Corey Hutchins' newsletter that you took Jeff and Bill of the Jeff and Bill Show from conservative talk radio KNUS downtown for a little tour, because I think there's a more conservative leaning sentiment about crime and safety downtown, that it is persisting more than maybe other folks view it. Tell me about this trip you took with Jeff and Bill.
Well, I wish I could have taken the Wall Street Journal writer too, but I have been trying to get on Jeff and Bill's schedule. I mean, I've talked to them on their radio show several times, but to take them downtown, because that show had been pushing the Mad Max-esque scenario. And I think most of the people who criticize downtown are not there. They don't go down. You and I are there a lot. They don't go downtown. And so I'm like, let's just go on any night. But they have to get up at 3 for their radio show. So
sure,
any night is going to be a Friday night. And we finally got together and we were going to meet at Union Station, go up 16th, and then back down and just kind of see what we saw. And I had a few places picked out to stop. But we did meet at the Terminal Bar outside Union Station, which is definitely not the emptiest downtown. That part of downtown is packed, both in businesses and in residential areas and in people using it at night. What I will say, one of the businesses down there took real issue with the 5280 piece, because he said, part of the problem is people working remotely. And Rose was working remotely and talking about how great it was in Union Station. And this business owner says, part of our problem is that people are working remotely. Denver does have the highest ratio of people working remotely for downtown businesses.
Yeah.
And that's an issue because they're not walking around the street and they're not going to get lunch.
Yeah, and that the Colorado Sun also had a 3-part series on this and said in May, office visits to downtown Denver office buildings were off by 48.4% compared to 2019, and I can definitely attest to that as well. Like we don't go downtown nearly as much as we used to, as a team, but that's the bread and butter of the rest of the week too. It's like the weekends are a different story. Summer times, all these like planned events for visitors and for families to go downtown. But yeah, the rest of the time, those lunch crowds, those after work happy hour crowds.
Those running to Walgreens crowds. It was, so before I went with Jeff and Bill, I'd gone to the Denver Pavilion's presentation by the Urban Land Institute talking about what they thought should be done with downtown pavilions, which is 66% occupied, I think, but has a bad rap for some things. So one of our stops was at the West Saloon, used to be Marlowe's, looking right at the Denver pavilions. And at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, of course, everything's bustling. People are walking up and down the street. Different crowd than at the terminal where you had a lot of baseball goers, but still a lot of conventioneers. People are out enjoying themselves. Nothing untoward, no Mad Max sights. It was great, but we were sitting there, and you do think about what can be done with the pavilions. I'll enlist you in my cause, which is take that Hard Rock space and put some live music in it.
Oh yeah, venue in there would be awesome.
With local live music, and you will fill that part of downtown very quickly.
Truly.
At night, you're still not gonna have people working in the offices.
No, but I would love to see somebody like Andy and Scott that are behind the Oriental and the Federal Theater, maybe booking a room, the Hard Rock size, with local acts or with touring acts that could potentially be booked in that smaller space. But I agree with you. That would take me downtown immediately.
And that's what they need. And at that Urban Land Institute presentation, they said, we're thinking not just about the weekends, which obviously the music would help, but at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Yes.
So I went down the next week at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday to see what was happening. And I will say this, they were cleaning the pavilions. They were attempting to fix the escalators. The 16th Street looked great. It just wasn't crowded. There were people walking along. Some were tourists. Some were obviously workers, but you don't get the crowds during the day that will keep businesses open.
Yeah. And I think, again, this speaks to like food and drink options. It speaks to how late things are open on which days. Like there is a movie theater in the pavilion. So
which is popular.
Yeah. So like, if there was a late night restaurant next door in the old Wolfgang Puck space or something, I think that would make a huge difference, because I'll just say this right now. There aren't a lot of options. We've talked about this a lot. There aren't a lot of options for late night dining. And this applies to so many types of people that are getting off shift at Denver Health that would go to the Denver Diner, or someone who's coming out of a show, or someone I've had friends that are comedians that come here, do a show, and they can't find any food afterward. Like those kinds of things. I understand it's hard to make those profitable right away, but those are the kinds of things I'd be looking to too.
The Appaloosa, for example, which has late night shows, has food.
Forever.
There are places. It's just hard to find them.
So what do you think? What else did you show Jeff and Bill? So you showed them the pavilions.
So we started at the terminal. We decided we would take the bus so you can get a feel for the bus. And there certainly are some people who might spend a lot of time on that bus, but everyone was very friendly. Lots of tourists, dads with their kids. We went up past pavilions to Sunday, which is one of the first recipients of a DDA grant. Alone. And they had just opened the day before. Big ice cream place. Not the Museum of Ice Cream, but Sunday, right at 16th and Glenarm. So went in there just to see what that was looking like. Then we hung out at the West to watch the pavilions and see if we saw any action that was not good. Everything looked so nice. We saw all the families walking by with their new ice cream cones. It was like a picture-perfect advertisement for Denver. And, they picked the night. This is the first one they could do. A huge AI convention in town, which was interesting. Oh. So they were out in real life, these AI conventioneers. But and then we walked back to the terminal, making a couple stops along the way, and sat outside at the patio there a couple hours later to see what things were like. And it was great. Went to Altrea for dinner, learned a lot about gin that I'd never needed to know, and whiskey. Yeah.
Do you think you changed Jeff and Bill's minds?
I think Bill, who'd lived at Brooks Towers a long time ago.
Downtown, sure. Right
on.
Yeah,
he had no problem with downtown. And I do think it changed Jeff's mind. He said it's definitely improving. He admitted that. He admitted he would go back down. He isn't booking the Western Conservative Summit there. I believe that's going to be, it once was at the convention center and they just said it was too horrible.
Yeah.
Then they went to the Gaylord. Interestingly, they're now going to the Colorado Christian University. So I'm guessing it's in Lakewood.
Oh, it's on Alameda.
And it's hooked up with the Centennial Institute. But I'm guessing perhaps cost might have more to do with it than unsavory people at the Gaylord.
Which is such a different environment and experience than downtown at the convention center.
It's kind of like a weird convention Disneyland that you're just stuck in.
Yeah. You're plopped down in the middle of nowhere and there's like yeah, it does have some Disneyland-esque decor on the inside and such. But
I have to say, yes, we did change minds, but people just need to go downtown. But I do think what we might not get to the people not working remotely. I mean, one of my friends who was upset about the 5280 don't work remotely in Union Station, go to an office, says, the state has to make its workers go back to work in buildings. The city needs to make its workers go back to work in downtown buildings because that will automatically keep those streets populated.
Well, I think that's where Asher Lozado has some of the best ideas then, because a lot of folks are the work from a home environment is really a lot easier if you have kids.
Right.
If you've got to pick up and drop off, or if there's a lot of factors, I think, that are not just like get people downtown because we want them to work downtown. Well, working from home changed a lot of things for folks or folks that are caregivers in their families and stuff like that. So
there's another big party there, I think on the 20th, one of his parties. So, or not his, he just leases it out for parties. But I think it would be a really interesting experience for people to see what downtown is like on a night like that.
What's coming up this weekend? We'll have to check that out.
It is.
And we'd love to know what you think about downtown Denver. Which narrative is true to your experience? Let us know, 720-500-5418. Let us know if downtown really is the emptiest downtown in the United States, or if you think otherwise. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are talking about Juneteenth Festival happening this weekend. Okay, we're talking Juneteenth, the big celebration coming up this weekend. I think the biggest news here for the 5 Point celebration is they've expanded to 3 days, which is pretty awesome. Patty, what do you think about this big celebration expanding?
It's really awesome considering they almost canceled last year.
That's right.
So you have obviously funding. In this case, it's all funding. It's not an issue of people being scared to go downtown. People still love to go downtown and love to go to these festivals. So you might remember the Mile High Jazz Festival wound up losing some of its funding, and that was canceled, and the city moved a bucket of money into a different area. But then the Drop stepped up at the last second last spring.
The radio station. Nice.
And came in and helped sponsor it. And the event was robust enough that now it is back for 3 days. First night, Friday night, is a ticketed event with music, but the next 2 days are all free, and they look great. There's the annual parade on Saturday morning, music up and down Welton afterwards, music again on Sunday. So it is a win-win story. Norman Harris has been working really hard over the last 15 years to bring it back, and I think has succeeded.
Yeah, he's the owner of Spangling. I think he's on the bid. He does a lot.
I think he runs the bid at the moment.
Yeah.
And he's someone who is, I don't know what generation, but longtime Denver family, has been working really hard to bring it back. And maybe it's really going to happen this time. I mean, the Rossonian just got through city council with another funding plan. So we finally might see the promise of 5 Points come through.
Yeah, and the Rossonian, cross your fingers. It's such a great. I mean, I think I will say, I think that this is really the time this is actually going to happen, because this has been a thing where someone's bought it and then deal fell through, but they bulldozed a building right next to it. So I think it's legitimately getting its redevelopment.
Right. And that's a plan to build more residential around it. It is depressing that over the last 40 years of failed attempts to revitalize this part of Welton Street, you've lost a lot of mom and pop businesses. And that's the shame of it. But some are still holding on, like the Welton Street Cafe.
I was going to say, I ate there recently, in this new space that they've now been in for, I think, over a year. And it was so beautiful. The new space is light and airy. There's windows, there's exposed brick. The food is as great as usual. Service is fantastic. And I think this might be the first introduction for some folks who hadn't been to the Welton Street Cafe since they had closed. Also, Fifth Coffee House is in the old coffee at the Point. They've been doing a lot of cool stuff. Every time I'm down there, I see people down there day and night, but I'm excited to see maybe bringing some folks down there who haven't experienced Welton in maybe a couple of years.
And the daughter of the founders of the Welton Street Cafe, I think, is going to be one of the grand marshals for the parade. So that's going to be great. And that they went through so much to relocate and through COVID and everything else, that's a real celebration.
Yeah, and they had issues with their construction, with they
Their
had to
landlord
sue
before they moved.
Yes, and they really persevered and made it through. And I'm telling you, it's better than ever at Welton Street. I love it.
We just need more.
Yes,
we need more of them. We need more people downtown. We need more mom and pops.
Well, Patty, thank you so much for joining me today. This was great.
My pleasure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Asher Lozado about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our morning newsletter at denver.citycast.fm. And hey, thanks so much to our new neighbors, Cody B, Ben W, and Kirk C, who just joined our membership program. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.